Well, I will go ahead and welcome everybody and call the meeting to order. And to establish quorum, let's go around and introduce ourselves as commissioners and tell us what capacity you serve on. I guess I will start. I'm John Schneider. I'm the president of the commission, and I'm here representing the Association of Youth Services.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Laird. I work for OG&E in my daytime capacity. On the commission, I was appointed by Senate Pro Tem Greg Treat as an individual with an interest in enhancing child serving agencies, working for an agency that does not receive money from the state.
Morning, I'm Rachel Holt. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Juvenile Affairs.
Deb Shropshire, Executive Director for Oklahoma Human Services.
Jennifer Harrington, I'm the CEO for Marlin's Place, and I'm appointed as child placing and residential care.
Keith Reed, Commissioner of Health, Oklahoma State Department of Health.
Mike Warren, I represent the Supreme Court.
Haley Kurth, I'm from Weatherford. I work at SWASU for my day job, but I serve on this board as a representative for PARB as a foster parent.
Jason Hicks, I'm a district attorney for the 6th district and represent the District Attorney's Council.
Kathleen Arrieta, Executive Assistant OCCY.
I'm Sandra Bolzer. I'm an Assistant Attorney General and I'm the Commission's legal counsel. I am not a member of the Commission.
Annette Jacoby, Executive Director of OCCY.
Awesome, thank you. So we have established quorum. Thank you all for being here. I know it takes time and a lot of you drive from, oh, we have some on Zoom. I'm sorry about that.
My name is Brenda Myers. I am the director of the Comanche County Juvenile Bureau and the Comanche County Juvenile Detention Center, and I serve as a representative for the county juvenile bureaus.
Awesome, thank you. I think we have two others virtually.
Yes, sorry about that. Jonathan Hall, I'm the president of Warburton Capital here in Tulsa, and I was appointed by Governor Stitt to represent business and industry on the commission.
Thank you. And I think we also have Brad Wilson. Okay, may not be on yet. Do we have a quorum? We do. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. As I was saying, we have several that drive from a long ways across the state. So thank you for making this a priority for Annette and for the commission and for the kids. So do we have any other guests, not members of the commission present? And if so, can you please introduce yourself now?
Online.
Online, yeah. Do we have guests online?
Hi, my name is Lisa White. I'm with the University of Oklahoma E-Team, and I'll be presenting today, so I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Do we need to introduce all guests? No? Okay. Okay. Well, guests, thank you for being here today and for joining us. Now move on to agenda item number 2, public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment today? Okay, no public comments. We'll move on to agenda item number 3. Discussion and possible vote to modify or approve the meeting minutes for the February 24th, 2023 special commission meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
I was actually present at the meeting and I'm not listed, and so.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay, yeah.
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes with the amendment that Dr. Shropshire was present.
Second.
Perfect. Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Please call vote.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Abstain.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Shropshire,
Yes.
and Judge Warren.
Yes.
Motion is passed. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Wilson. But it's not calling me. Did I call you? I'm sorry. Director Holt.
Yes.
Yes. And he is not here. Okay. Motion passed.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, next, we're gonna reorganize just a little bit, and I'm gonna skip down to agenda item number 6, presentation on the OCCY Children of Incarcerated Parents. And I will turn it over to David McLeod.
Where do you want me to go?
Probably up there.
There? Okay, all right. Loading question. So, camera stuff, Aaron, am I good?
Oh, he doesn't need anything? Okay.
Yep. Make it as short and sweet as I can. So thank you for having me here. My name is David McLeod. I'm a professor at the University of Oklahoma. Been serving on the Children of Incarcerated Parents Legislative Advisory Committee for, gosh, about 10 years now. So been really fortunate to be able to see a lot of transition happen during that time. And this is the first time that I've come to kind of speak in front of the commission and say hi. So thanks for taking the time to have us here and learn a little bit more, at least let us jabber on for a minute about the types of things that we have going on. So see some old friends, new folks, glad to help or meet with you at any time. Feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do to answer questions or help on any other projects that we don't get to today. Thank you for that. Moving on. You've got in your packet, I believe, the annual report that I would like to take full credit for developing. I can't, but I do want to recognize Danielle and the team here at OCCY who have, like I mentioned, over the past 10 years, seen a lot of things come and go. Since Annette came in, Danielle's support, this has dramatically increased the productivity of the Children of Incarcerated Parents Working Group. It is a different group now, and we are far more productive than we have been in the past. And while I would like to take credit for that, I can't. The staff and support here have been really fundamental in what we've been able to accomplish, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. So thank you for not only making a beautiful report, but making the rest of us look good for just showing up. But so a little bit of background, if you're not familiar, this was originally a statutorily created group. We came together with a couple of charges to coordinate research, develop educational resources or other resources, assemble them into a centralized location and make sure that they're available to agencies that serve children of incarcerated parents, with the hope that we can distribute and get those things out to people on time. We're also here to try to help coordinate those services, collect data, and to help streamline and prevent overlap where possible. So over the years, there have been a lot of initiatives put in place to try to coordinate with in service provision. I'm sure none of the agencies you've ever been affiliated with, but we do see in Oklahoma sometimes we get a little bit territorial about the places they serve, the populations they serve. They care passionately about what they're doing. So one of the things that we focused on quite a bit over the years is trying to help make sure that we support the independent missions of the different member organizations, but also provide this kind of collaborative space and warm handoff and transition so that we can complement each other's projects, services, and organizations. And that's one of the things that's been really exciting, particularly as we've moved forward. We do provide a report to the legislature every year. That has changed pretty significantly in both form and function over the past decade. And we've seen, hopefully, some of those pieces of information that are the most important find their way into our lawmakers' conversations. For example, we know from the research and the collective work and advocacy of the people in the group that at any given time, literally as we sit here in this room today, there could be anywhere from 25 to 30,000 children in Oklahoma who have an incarcerated parent right now, like in this moment. That's a pretty prolific number. If we think about it in that context, not everybody's parent is currently incarcerated. We also have children who have experienced incarceration who maybe aren't at the moment. So some of those numbers can get upwards of 75,000 children in Oklahoma who have a current or formerly incarcerated parent. And if you're familiar with kind of the research and what happens in that space, there are all kinds of life complications. It's literally one of the ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, that we document and talk about. It's problematic not only in the way that the child has to adjust due to separation from their parent in that time, but also the stigma that's attached to it and the availability of resources or opportunities to access resources for these kids. It has a dramatic impact on their life and their trajectories of their lives. We know that children of incarcerated parents, and I think this is an important one, that a soapbox that I tend to get on quite a bit. In Oklahoma, we incarcerate people at the top rates in the developed world. When I came here in 2013, we incarcerated more women than anywhere else in the developed world. I believe now we're number 2. But still being at number 2, if we put that in context, I think in Iran right now, where women are literally fighting for the rights to be alive, we incarcerate about 15 times higher than Iran, just for context. So we are still, moving to number 2 is great, but there's a lot of work to do. And what we understand about the intergenerational nature of incarceration is something that is literally unsustainable mathematically in our state. So I'm a quantitative researcher, I'm a former police detective, I'm an investigator of 3 decades now. And what we know empirically, without question, is that there is a mathematically unsustainable intergenerational problem in Oklahoma when it comes to incarceration. We incarcerate people at such a high rate, and we know that children statistically are up to 5 times more likely than their peers to become incarcerated themselves if they had a parent who's incarcerated. So if you just do the basic math, right, the number of people we incarcerate times 2.5 kids apiece means that that number cannot go down at the same, and it cannot fluctuate with the population. We will continue to have higher and higher percentages of incarcerated people in our state until we address that. We've passed the critical threshold for being able to address some of those issues around intergenerational incarceration. So I'll put a pin on that. I'd be glad to come back and talk about that anytime you'll have me. But I think it's a serious fundamental epidemic problem in our state that we fiscally cannot get away. If we step completely away from the altruistic kind of how do we help these kids not end up in prison or end up in a life of crime, step completely away from that fiscally, it's unsustainable and untenable. And from a budgetary standpoint, we also have to address it, even if you don't care about kids. Not that I'm saying you don't care about kids. You wouldn't be here if you didn't care about kids. But I'm just saying, you get paid for it. So some of the things some of the things that we have really taken pride in over the past couple of years, as we've advanced the agenda, really with Annette was the first one to come up several years ago. So we'd really like to see more out of this group. I believe this group can do more. Thanks for kind of pushing us, giving us an excuse to step out there. And we've stepped up and started doing quite a bit more. So we've reignited the call toward research in a couple of different ways. And some of that is in connection to the type of funding and extra support that we've been able to see over the past couple of years. One of the things we've done with that, and it's mentioned in the report here, is to initiate a doctoral fellowship program. We know in the higher education that some of the most cutting edge research typically comes from younger scholars. Doctoral students will ask questions that people that are old hand like me don't think about. And so we want to encourage and support newer generations of scholars in Oklahoma that are interested in the type of scholarship that would help advance causes for children of incarcerated parents. Our current doctoral fellow is Ashley Harvey. There's a little bit of a bio about her here. She has a really powerful story. I'd encourage you to invite her to speak sometime about her experiences and her research. I won't speak for her, but I'll tell you it's a really incredible thing and one of the most, really one of the most incredible moments I've ever seen when she first came to present to us at our group meeting. One of the other major products that we have is our educational toolkit. So that's evolved quite a bit over the years. We've just gone through a recent version or edition update, and it's a collection of the resources that we've been able to identify thus far in the state of Oklahoma that can help support children of incarcerated parents and their caregivers. We're working on trying to divide those up or at least have resource so that people can access those and know how to find resources that are geographically close to them, for example, but to fit the immediate needs. We have a lot of wonderful people across the state that are doing incredible things for these children and their caregivers and families. And oftentimes the struggle is really in helping people know that that resource might exist or getting them connected to that. So the point of our educational toolkit is to help do that. We've had a lot of really wonderful feedback in the past couple of months even about not only digital access to that toolkit, but also hard copy access to the toolkit. We were at a meeting in Tulsa, I think at Women in Recovery just a few weeks ago, right? And they were talking about just having that hard copy to be able to give people in a world where we don't really print a lot of stuff that much anymore is still a really valuable resource. So being able to share that is very helpful for us. We've also reignited and been more intentional about our professional education and training agenda. So some of the things that we'll talk about in there, whether that's helping nonprofit or other community leaders be able to access events at a national level and supporting through scholarship or stipend members of our group to be able to travel to or participate virtually in different types of networking and educational events. Been able to do that over the past couple of years with some advances in funding, but I'm probably almost the most excited about how the expansion of our group and membership of people in the group has afforded us the opportunities to start our own educational and outreach and training events in the state as well. So just this past year, we developed the 2022 Oklahoma Fatherhood Summit. I would be remiss without mentioning Marquise Dennis, who was a pivotal leader in that, helped set that summit up in the Tulsa area. Governor Stitt was actually in attendance at the event, which we didn't know would happen, but we're very thankful that it brought an even higher level of exposure to the event. In the past, we've been fortunate to devote a lot of resources to understanding the impact of incarceration on mothers and their children in that relationship. And we made a decision in the past year around 2021, late 21, early 22, that we wanted to also extend and learn more about the impact of incarceration on fatherhood and how fathers connect with their children. So that's been a really exciting development. We plan to continue those summits, both the Fatherhood Summit, and now we're starting conversation to try to explore what could be some other high impact areas that don't have a lot of resources or conversation ongoing. We'll probably look into how we can rotate and alternate those events between central Oklahoma and the Tulsa area. So keep your ears out if you're interested in coming along for some more of that stuff. We've also, for the past few years, started working specifically on additional funding development. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we might have 25, 30,000 kids who have an incarcerated parent. From a state funding perspective, we have enough money to serve maybe 100 of those a day. In the way, because part of the goal is for this group to be able to identify and distribute state resources as available to agencies who can help support these children, right? So 100 out of, and it was less than that, being generous, 100, closer to 60, but I'm trying to be a little positive. Because we have had a little bump and I appreciate it. That still leaves, 24,000 plus by my math, in need. So we've been working on funding development. We've submitted multiple federal grants as a collective over the past few years. This is coordinated through OCCY. We're very thankful and appreciative. We have this year been awarded our first federal grant through the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention to help consolidate an action plan and provide financial support to some of our most prominent child serving agencies that are connected to incarceration. So I believe we have Girl Scouts, we have a Messages Project, New Hope, doing all kinds of different things, whether it's going inside out, working with kids, working with parents on parenting and reunification and some other different things that, where appropriate, could be healthy and helpful for kids. So do you remember what that total number was? I want to say around 750,000
3 years.
for 3 years. So a pretty decent grant in the social and behavioral world. Oh, you would love it. run stuff like that through there. But it's nice to finally hit one of those. And one of the great things about that type of grant work is if you do that first one right, you score better on the following ones. So it starts a bit of a, hopefully we can do a great job, produce great products associated with that, and then help us have access to further support that we can then stretch out and share with more of our partners across the state. So we're continuing on data collection and trying to understand better what it is our partners are doing, what the lived experience is like for children of incarcerated parents and their caregivers in the state. And also recently, and I'm getting ready to hand it over to Lisa. You ready, Lisa? Getting ready to hand it over to her because we wanted to understand a little bit better what is it that we are doing as a collective, as a group, as different leaders and organizations in the state. How can we work more efficiently together and streamline the types of things that we're doing and have a more collective impact? And so reached out to Lisa White and the E-team at OU, and have been really really thankful to receive the support and guidance that they've been able to show us and help us think through kind of where our strengths are and where some growth opportunities might be for us to expand and get better as we move forward. So thank you for the time. I don't know if you answer questions. Sure. Right, Lisa, I'm gonna ask if anybody's questions. Any other questions? I'm gonna leave, and then any questions you have for me, you can ask Lisa. My apologies. I have to go to another folk. I have to go do some research here in Oklahoma City.
Dr. McLeod, if you do step out before I have a chance to say this, thank you for your work in this space. I think it's really important. And I wrote down the statistic you talked about, the 6 times more likely a kid of an incarcerated parent. And we run at my shop a transitional living program. And I can't tell you how many times we see kids that their parents are incarcerated, and their plan, if you ask them their plan is to go to prison. They will tell you that. And so I really appreciate your work in this space. And
well, thank you for saying that and bringing the story out so that people can hear it. Because that is the reality a lot of these children believe is their future. That's what they've been presented. That's what they've seen in their families and their communities. And that's their expectation for their life. Until our community partners and agencies and the people that support and care about these folks can get out there and show these young people that there are different options, that is what they believe to be true. And if you go into our prisons, I've done a lot of work with the Department of Corrections and gone in, particularly in women's prisons, and where you'll see a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter will be in there at the same time. It is a generational issue, and it's partially due to all kinds of other stuff, which I'd love to tell you about sometime if you're interested. But also just these expectations normalized, that's going to be your path. And we can get in there before things happen. We know who's at risk. I think that's what gives me chills to talk about. That's why I do the work I do. That is literally why I came to Oklahoma. We can identify exactly who is at risk to do the types of things that will lead to the behavioral pathways that take them to prison. We know who they are before they're due. We just have to get there and give them different options. And that keeps people both from getting hurt and it keeps people from going to prison. It's win-win, and it's easier on our part. Whichever angle you take, nobody really loses. So thanks for bringing that out. So, I don't know if y'all believe me, but you gotta believe the people around the table.
thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Dr. McLeod?
I have a comment. Can I make a comment? I don't mean to. I have a family member that ended up in prison, and I took the responsibility of raising her child. Well, he kept getting in trouble. And every time he got in trouble, he got caught. And I asked him, why you keep doing this? You suck at being a criminal. And he said, I want to be with my mother. So that is sometimes the mindset that these kids have. If they stay in trouble, if they do end up where their parents are, then they have a closer connection with their parents or whatever. So I just wanted to say that to just kind of illustrate what you were saying.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McLeod, and we will turn it over to
We will
Lisa.
transition. Thank you for your time. My apologies for having to take off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the introduction from Dr. McLeod. So let me just give you a little bit of background about myself and about the University of Oklahoma E-Team. So I'm a senior researcher at the University of Oklahoma E-Team, and E-Team is an acronym for Educational Training, Evaluation, Assessment, and Measurement. So we are a full service research and evaluation department at the University of Oklahoma, housed within the College of Continuing Education. So we have researchers, research assistants, web developers, graphic designers, statisticians. We also employ student employees, which helps us gain a different perspective for many of our projects. And we work with a variety of agencies, helping them understand their data better, building data systems to help manage their data, track outcomes, improve program processes and outcomes by targeting areas of improvement. So we really work to show positive program impact and to kind of focus on continual process improvement. Some of the different organizations we've worked for or sectors are foster care, education, including state departments of education, higher ed, early childhood education, elementary, secondary, prevention, mental health services. And so we started working with OCCY a couple of years ago. We began working with Keith Pirtle and his team with the Post Adjudication Review Board program. And so Keith had a pretty solid vision of what he wanted as far as the data application and the way he wanted to move for data collection. So we worked with his group to modernize data collection, standardize data collection across the state so that everyone was doing the same thing at all the boards. So we built a web-based application or database for members to enter their data. So for PARB, they have transitioned fully from paper data entry forms by hand to electronic data. There's still a few boards that are lagging, but the goal is to get all of the boards entering their data in electronically so it can all be in one place. So then about a year or so after that, we built similar databases for other OCCY programs, which brings us to the Office of Planning and Coordination, which facilitates the Children of Incarcerated Parents Partnership. And so we started working with them, kind of getting to understand their program better and their goals and objectives. And so Danielle Dill and her team wanted to conduct a baseline evaluation on the CIP program. So she had researched and found an evaluation tool called the Partnership Effectiveness Continuum, or PEC. And so we used that evaluation tool for the baseline evaluation for the partnership. So I'm going to share my screen, and that kind of brings us to the meat of this. And get into, okay. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, like I said, we chose the PEC, and so there were a few reasons why we chose that tool. It was developed by Cheryl King and published by the Educational Development Center, which is a pretty prestigious research and evaluation center. I think it's out of Pennsylvania. And so it is research-based tool. It's for measuring, specifically designed to measure the effectiveness of a partnership. It shows where partnerships are most effective, and it also shows where improvements can be made, like any good evaluation tool. The thing that we really liked about the PEC was that it was, unlike so many other evaluation tools, it requires respondents to really look at a set of criteria and determine the best rating based on how many criteria are met. So I felt like it was less opinion-based, less self-perception, and really more based in evidence. And so that's one of the reasons why we chose that tool. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the tool itself to kind of help you understand how it's organized, how the ratings are, and then that way when we look at the scores that the CIP received for their baseline evaluation, it'll make more sense. So the PEC is organized around 6 dimensions of effective partnership. So through their research, the EDC found these things to be the main characteristics or indicators of effective partnerships. So that includes partnership vision, institutional leadership, communication and collaboration, joint ownership and accountability for results, system alignment, integration, and sustainability and response to local contexts. And so the way the tool is organized is there are those dimensions, and then inside the dimensions, there are indicators. And within those indicators, there's a set of criteria. An indicator may have one criterion or it may have 3 or 4. And so to understanding each criterion is essential to providing a rating for each indicator. So I'm going to show you an example, make it a little more concrete. So here we are looking at the communication and collaboration dimension. And so this is one indicator inside that dimension. The indicator we're rating here is communication tools and protocols. And the criteria aligned with this indicator are processes for documenting and disseminating partnership meeting minutes and following up on partner action steps are in place. The second criterion is an agreed upon schedule of meeting dates, times, and locations established at the beginning of the year to support regular attendance. So to rate this, the respondent has to look at those criteria, and if all of the criteria are met, the indicator can receive a rating of highly effective. If most are met, it gets a rating of effective. If some criteria are met, partially effective. If few criteria are met, you mark it as ineffective. So that's kind of an example of one indicator within one dimension. And so as you can see, this tool isn't something that we would just throw out at people to complete. So we did feel like we needed to everyone to be on the same page, for all of the CIP partners to be on the same page and kind of understand each of the dimensions and the indicators and the criteria. So so we can be as consistent as possible with the ratings. So before we disseminated this baseline evaluation tool, partnership members, they're going to complete the survey independently, but we had a discussion. So we had a meeting where we all got together and we did go through each dimension, each indicator, and each set of criteria within the indicator, and members kind of had an open discussion and provided evidence on how each criterion was met or not met. And this kind of was an open discussion. It wasn't to guide people to say, oh, this is met or this isn't met. It was to kind of just help educate some of the members that maybe hadn't been there for a year or whatever, and kind of talk about the definitions of these criteria and the indicators. So that was really helpful to do before we actually disseminated the evaluation tool. And so we're going to jump right into the results. And so one of the things that we did, this wasn't part of the CIP evaluation, but we did ask it just to see where it fell out. So we asked how often the members or partners had been in attendance to the CIP advisory committee meetings to get a good idea of who our audience was and how involved they've been with these meetings. So over the last 12 months. So the average attendance reported was 6 times. Most number of meetings attended was 12, and the least number of meetings attended was 2. If someone had only attended 1 meeting, we wanted them to wait to fill out the tool until the following year, because we really didn't think they would have enough information to rate the criteria. And so we also asked who was completing the survey, what community sector did they represent? So the top 3 sectors represented by the survey respondents were youth serving organizations, state and local government, and then other, which included nonprofits like Head Start, prison employment, mental health and substance abuse agencies. Business, media, law enforcement, and faith-based were not really represented in this survey. Not to say that they aren't part of the partnership, but they didn't take the survey. And this was also kind of a good way to look at those community sectors that weren't represented as much to maybe see how the partnership could bring them in more or get them more involved. And so here we can see exactly how each of the dimensions were rated. So the percentage represents the percent of responses that received effective or highly effective ratings. And if you remember, those were the ones that where you look at the criteria and give a rating based on if it's met or not met. And so just to review, we have communication and collaboration all the way to joint ownership and accountability for results. So the highest rated dimension was communication and collaboration. And that wasn't really a big surprise. That's something that the partnership felt like they did well, and it shows that they do that really well. But it also shows areas where improvements can be made, especially with system alignment, integration, and sustainability, and joint ownership and accountability for results. And we'll get really more involved in those dimensions as we go through this and kind of look at that. But this graph is a really good representation of how the dimensions fell out. And so when we repeat this in the second year, we can kind of compare from year 1 to year 2 based on some of the improvements that they targeted that they wanted to make, where those improvements fell out. So now I'm going to go through each dimension and look at each of the indicators. And these were put in order from highest to lowest rated, just like in the chart. And although most responses and all indicators did receive effective or highly effective ratings. So here we have communication and collaboration as the dimension. And so you can see it really is rated highly. There's not a lot of variation. 100% for communication tools and protocols. That criteria or that indicator included criteria such as processes for documenting meeting minutes, follow-up steps are in place, and agreed upon schedule of meetings. And so that one got really high ratings. Information dissemination was also highly rated. And so this was really a good high point for them, communication and collaboration, which is a 91% rated effective or highly effective. So institutional leadership, there was quite a bit of variation in effectiveness of indicators for this dimension. You can see that leader engagement was scored really high, as well as shared leadership and resource commitment. The area to really focus on here would probably be partnership incentives to see how that could be improved. And for this partnership, that may or may not be something that they really want to focus on. It's a partnership of people who come together because they want to be there. And so that was kind of a conversation we were going to have about that. And this whole dimension received 81% effective or highly effective ratings. 81% also for response to local context. Again, there was some variation in the response to local context dimension. Community, which involves the partnership being inclusive, scored high with 95% of responses being rated as effective or highly effective. Partnership recruitment selection. Some of the criteria there is around partners continually exploring new opportunities to expand the partnership and ensure its effectiveness and sustainability. Partnership has a well-developed process for recruiting and inducting new partners. So that one was rated pretty high also. And 65% effective or highly effective for policy environment. So this was the lowest rated indicator for this dimension. And that includes things like the partnership understands its role in influencing the policy environment. A strategic plan is in place that includes political action steps that are aimed at broadening the impact of its work. So the key to remember for this one, I think, and we'll see later on, there's a theme that strategic planning was an area to focus on for to improve the partnership and improve the partnership's effectiveness. And at the end, I'll kind of share some things that are going on with that. But strategic planning does come up quite a few times. Partnership vision. This one was 76% effective or highly effective. And you can see again, a lot of variation in how the indicators were rated. So mission and beliefs, I think that's something that the partnership, I think everyone's on board with what they want to do, why they want to do it, what their goals and objectives are. Joint reform, 78%. It addresses identifying partnership needs and priorities with a strategic plan for accomplishing short and long-term partnership goals. So again, that strategic planning is coming up as an area that can really improve the partnership. And then at the bottom, 64% strategic action plan. So that involves actually creating the action plan, creating timelines, goals, roles, and responsibilities, and expected outcomes. System alignment, integration, and sustainability. So integration, 86%, that was the highest rated indicator in this dimension. It includes things like partner organizations select skilled and committed staff with complementary skill sets, and they don't consider the partnership to be extracurricular. I think this one is challenging because in some ways, the partnership may seem like it's extracurricular because, like I said, people are there because they want to be there. It's not a paid partnership. And so that one, was maybe why that one scored a little bit lower. I'm not sure. Again, I believe that the strategic planning will help out with this system alignment and identification of accomplishment of collective goals. So again, strategic planning came up again as something in this dimension that could really help with alignment and sustainability. Keeping the partnership going by being cognizant of vacancies, building organizational capacity, succession planning, and having ongoing funding strategies. So that's the kinds of things that will help sustain the partnership. I think sustainability is often one of the highest accomplishments because it's like continually improving the process, increasing capacity and momentum, and keeping the partnership going. And I think that this is, from what I've seen and this evaluation, I think this is a very sustainable partnership. People are excited about what they're doing, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So joint ownership and accountability for results. This one scored the lowest, 60% effective or highly effective aggregately. But the indicators, again, a lot of variation. 90% sharing progress. So that was a really, that scored highly. And so the partnership is really good at, like Dr. McLeod did today, sharing what's going on, the progress, all of the great things that are happening, and moving toward that goal of the planned goals. The benchmarks and outcome and using data, those are the lowest scored indicators. And I think, even with this, what's happening here with this evaluation, I think that is going to help the partnership use data in a different way by evaluating the partnership and setting some benchmarks and outcomes to look at. And then so you can see improvement in the partnership, see improvement in processes. And one of the things that we've been doing also is kind of doing some evaluations for some of the events that have been going on with the CIP. And so that just might be like a training or a conference, and kind of collecting data on those things so you can use those data just to improve, one-time conferences and things like that that are going to be happening annually. And so to take away, the CIP partnership is an effective partnership, but it can be even more effective. And so I kind of listed the indicators that received at least one ineffective rating. And strategic planning, again, has come up over and over as something that could really be a focus of improvement, improve the partnership. measures for and assessing progress, which we are starting to do even with this. Partnership incentives, decision-making, having more clear roles and responsibilities, using data and things like that, I think are all going to go together and helping this partnership kind of get where they want to be or move forward in the right direction. So someone had a really good quote. We had some open-ended data that we asked also. And so we asked what would make the partnership more effective. We thought this quote represented kind of collectively what the group was saying: shared goals for the year, including action steps for engaging legislative members to increase advocacy and promote the issues of biggest importance to CIP work. And so again, with that strategic planning, I think that those shared goals are going to be more concrete and more attainable. So ending on a positive note, the CIP partnership excels in many areas. These are the indicators that got 90% or above: communication and collaboration, information dissemination, leader engagement, community and mission beliefs. And so I think that these are the things that the partnership knew they did really well. And I think they're leveraging these things that they know they do well to improve on the other areas. Because without this type of thing, without good communication and collaboration, without leader engagement, how are you going to develop a strategic plan? And so I think that they have a really strong foundation and they know that, and they're going to use that to get where they want to go. And I know that there are plans in place to have a documented strategic plan. And so that's going to be happening in May. And so we're really excited about that. And so recommendations, one of the things obviously was developing a strategic plan collaboratively with members, and that's happening in May. And so I'm going to be there. I'm excited to see all the things that they decide that they want to work towards and get that plan documented. And I think it's just going to be a really good improvement for the program. And then when we, this was our baseline when we do the second year of data collection using the PEC, we'll be able to see improvements. And I fully expect to see improvements for strategic planning, since that's something they're really focusing on. And so here's a really good quote: even though our partnership is a bit more informal in its structure and for the overall culture of the group that works, but I do believe certain processes need a bit more formalization, such as this evaluation, which is a step in the right direction. So that kind of encompassed some of the thoughts with, what could make the partnership better also. And that is all I have for to share the CIP, the results of that evaluation. Do you guys have any questions?
I don't have a question. I think maybe more of a comment related to, I totally agree with you, Lisa, that a lot of the elements you mentioned related to communications, those are great fundamentals and foundational activities. However, having a strategic plan for 40 plus organizations that are not necessarily doing CIP work full time, I can see that being a challenge. And I think Danielle is amazing at her job. I am curious though about, how much of Danielle's time would be dedicated to kind of spearheading and shepherding a strategic plan like this?
It's not just Danielle.
Yeah, I have a team,
Okay.
luckily. Planning and coordination, we have James and Isabel, and Ellen, and then we're getting ready to hire another community planner. And then, of course, the committee itself, we have a very, very active, engaged CIP advisory team. So my goal is just to support, develop leaders, and facilitate.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we are having a strategic planning session on Friday, May 12th. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and it'll be at the Girl Scouts of Eastern Oklahoma in Tulsa.
It's very
You guys are all
exciting.
invited.
Does anybody else have any questions for Lisa? All right, Lisa, thank you so much for your presentation and for walking us through this. And from what I understand, you're the group that's also building our database currently for us. So thank you for that partnership and collaboration with OCCY.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, next on the agenda, we will move on to agenda item number 4, presentation and approval of the finance report. And I will welcome up Megan Patton to go over our finance report.
Okay, I'm Megan Patton. Last time I kind of discussed what all of these meant, and this, I put all the notes on there again so that we would kind of be on the same page with it. So with the general revenue fund, just to remind everybody, these are the appropriated funds, and those funds always stay with the fiscal year that they were allotted in. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Let's start with the ABC, which is the allotment budget and available cash. And in 191, which is the fiscal year 21 general revenue fund, there is no money left, which is good. You want to spend all that money. The 192, there's $415,545.20 left. FY23, there's $168,455.89. The revolving fund is not appropriated funds, so this is money that you guys got from grants and things like that. Maybe we can have a better idea of where that money is coming from, but that has $289,529.20. The next is the Canada revolving fund, which is the child abuse multidisciplinary team, I think. And that has $92,385.92. So that money comes in, and then you guys get some refund checks and we put it back into that fund from agencies that don't use it. 994 is the payroll withholding, and that's 9780, negative 9780. So there's that. And then moving on to the next report, this is the ETA, which is the budget to actuals comparison, and this just compares what you budgeted with what you actually spent. So on the far left here in the annual budget for department 010002, you budgeted $1,002,964. The year-to-date budget is just how much it's 9/12 of what was budgeted. So that number is $752,221. The expenses is what you've actually spent out of this fund, and that's $607,343.81. And then next one is encumbrances, and the total of the expenses and encumbrances is $747,549.81. And then the last is the annual variance. That's just the difference between the budget and the expenses and encumbrances. And pre-encumbrances, again, those are e-pros that haven't been converted over to a purchase order yet. So that just means we probably have to wait for IT's requirements. Anyway, moving on to the next one. This is the juvenile system oversight. The budget was $929,933. The year-to-date budget, of course, is 9/12 of that, $697,449. Expenses out of that department are $549,423.50. And then the total expenses and encumbrances are $555,724.29. I'm gonna skip over the annual variance if you guys don't mind on the rest of it, unless you want me to read it off. It's just the difference between. So the next is the Children's Endowment Fund. The annual budget is $296,466. Skip year-to-date budget too. Go to expenses. Out of this department, there's been $157,269.30, and the total of expenses and encumbrances is $174,595.08. The next department is office planning and coordination. The annual budget is $326,760 with $177,301.01 of expenses. And total expenses and encumbrances are $198,954.34. Department 43 is the posted adjudication review board. Annual budget is $258,772. Expenses are $136,082.62. the total expenses. $144 is the MDTs, and that's multidisciplinary teams. This one has $1,038,115 budgeted, $847,461.67 of expenses. And then the total expenses and encumbrances is $960,125.79. 45 is the CASA contract. The budget is 10,000. Expenses $454,545.02. And then all of the remaining budget is encumbered, so the total expenses and encumbrances is 10,000. So Department 90 is children of incarcerated parents. The annual budget is 95,000. Expenses are $60,981.83, and the total expenses and encumbrances are $80,209. Little competencies. Number one, annual budget is 52,500. Expenses are 40,000, and the total expenses and encumbrances is 50,000. The Board of Child Abuse Examinations, annual budget of 100,450. Expenses, there are no expenses out of there yet, and 100,000 is encumbered. So that's the total for expenses and encumbrances. Child Death Review Board, 258,394 has been budgeted, 190,111.14 has been expended, and the total expenses and encumbrances is $190,261.35. The last page on the BTA is the IT department. There was $457,616 budgeted, $255,704.03 of expenses, and then the total of expenses and encumbrances is $432,669.70. And in all of those departments, you're doing well. They're all under budget. So you're not over budget anywhere. You have enough money and encumbrances to cover all the expenses out of all of those departments. So I'm going to move on to the last report, which is the summary of receipts and disbursements. And this report ties back to the very first report. So all of those, the general revenue fund, you'll see the totals there, but this kind of breaks down the expenses and revenues for that. So of course, with 191, which is the FY21 general revenue fund, there's no money in there, which is a good thing. For 192, the FY22 general revenue fund, there is $415,545.20. And so far, the expenses out of this fund this year are $47,445.05. 193 is FY23 general revenue fund, and the expenses out of this fund are $1,713,606.11, and the total remaining is the $168,455.89, and just tie back. So I might not reread those numbers. I'll just stick with the revenue and expenses. So the next page is the revolving fund, and this is the grants and things like that. So in March, there was $30,214.28 that came in, and $59,824.99 that went out. The Canada revolving fund, in March, there was $16,375.01 that came in, and no expenditures. Payroll funding, 466.30 is the change in my budget. Nothing in it, nothing out. And then the clearing account, this is where any funds from non-trusted sources, which is anything that's not a government agency, that's where the money goes. Until we move it back into one of the other departments for you guys to spend. So in March, the revenue there was $27,505.15.
is. Did you ask for questions?
Yes.
Just looking at, which one is it? I think it's the MDT. It seems like, well, we have enough in the fund. If it continues at this rate, is it a matter of timing, or will we have enough funds to carry through the rest of the year for MDTs? Could be that it was just front loaded or higher expenses came in earlier in the year.
So, yeah, you have $1,038,000 budgeted, so yes, you will have enough. You still have 112,664 encumbered for the year, so I would say that based off of just, I think that you guys will have enough.
Should we let Mark, would you like to elaborate?
I was just gonna add, on the MDTs, probably 90% of that budget is the CAMPTA funds that come from DHS.
Okay.
And so at the beginning, when it comes in January, we distribute 90% of that to those teams. So we are front loaded. So all that money comes, a large amount comes in, we spend it to the teams. And so what is remaining is just the salaries for the rest of our staff. So we don't, so it is front loaded.
Got
It all gets spent early on.
And then remind me, where is the database? Where's that fund coming from? For our databases
It's gonna
being
be in
built?
Department 88, the last,
Okay. The IDP, the admin?
No, it should be the IT at the very end, the last one she went over.
Okay,
yes, it does say ISDDP admin. That's the way it's labeled, but yes.
okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Megan Patton? Okay, I will. Oh, okay, sorry about that. I'll also turn it over to.
For the detailed financial report, my presentation will focus on little financial updates and the figures from the perspective of administration of funds. I have a little presentation on it. So the first is the total, giving us the overview that we are on track and we have spent up till now 76% of the budget, and the remaining 23% is for the last quarter. And if we see year to date, we are almost on the track with respect to the budget utilization. This is the overall account-wise budget and their expenditures and the utilization. Overall, if we see the expenses, for example, these are the detail head of accounts, the salaries related, the travels, the rent expense. If you look at the on macro level, for example, the 5.1 are the personal expenses related to salaries. If you look at the 5.2 account code, starting with the 5.2, these are the travel expenses. 5.3 are the administrative. 5.4 are the property, furniture, equipment, and 5.5 are the journal assistance, awards, program-related expenditures. And if we come up to seeing the things in macro level, that means we are very good at doing very good in two things. Number one is we have spent 97% on our program related costs. And number two, we are very good in taking the salaries for doing that business. So that is the second major head. Salaries, we are spend 71% up till now. If you look at the graphs, it will give us some good comparison. The blue ones are the budget for the annual, the orange ones are the year-to-date budget, and the green ones are our expenditures and encumbrance up till the March 31st. So almost we are on track if we compare both ways with the year-to-day budget and the annual budgets. If we look at the things with the departments, so we analyze the thing in different way, just like if we see overall, the second last column, that is the overall utilization, every department showing almost more than 70% of the utilization. Some of them are below that threshold. So we investigated the thing. That's why we are below in that departments. For example, Department 32 for the juvenile, Department 40 and Department 42. So we try to dig out why we are under utilization up till now. This is their department-wise graphical presentation. You can see in some of the areas, like for example, the first one, if we compare year-to-date budget, we spend more than of that. That doesn't mean we went above the budget. We are within the budget for the whole year, but for the year-to-date, because sometimes activities varies. Year-to-date budget just divides by the two flatly, giving you the total budget. So, but activities they occur sometimes lately or sometimes before, but overall, if we see, we are within the budget utilization. And what we found where we are low in utilization, what was the reasons? We observed that some payments related to the professional services, some conferences that are held or that are planned for the next quarter or coming quarter, or they are occurred, but their expenses were not made before 31st. So professional services are planned for the next quarter. Some of the travel expenses we planned, it was not occurred in that way. It seems like after pandemic, a lot of things has changed, and we learned the alternative ways of doing the things. So travel in all the areas remain underspent. Some allocations for the trainings that were planned for the in-person attendance, but they come up with the virtual trainings, so it also cut some cost. Overall, these are the 2 or 3 reasons where we are behind the utilization or underutilization. Certainly, certain other office expenses related to the administrative has been changed due to the working environment, like most of the staff telework and doing the things virtually. These are some updates we are doing in up till now. The monthly reports we do discuss with the OMES, Megan, on periodic on every month basis. Keeping in view the budget utilization trend, we hope that we would be able to afford if we look at conservatively, we would be able to spend more than 80% to 90% of our year's allocation. I'm keeping in view the trends. We can say even positively, we can go little above to the 90%. In the last month, we carried forward the detailed discussions with our team, program managers on the outstanding encumbrance for the financial year 22. We discussed everything. Is there anything pending, and these encumbrance need to be reviewed. If we don't need that, we can unencumbered fund and carry it forward to the next year. So we did the exercise, discussed with each of the relevant manager for the budget, and we freed up almost $142,000 from the financial year 22 encumbrances. Some agency-related policies, purchasing policy for the agency, food policy for the agency, and asset management policy for the agency. We reviewed that. They are in final shape. We submitted to the next step, and they are in place. Rest the routine invoicing from the suppliers, payments to the partners are on time, and they are progressing normally. We have requested for the financial year 22 a flat budget. There's no expected new expenditure. So in this quarter, we would be finalizing that figures and putting a final shape to the financial year 2024.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have questions or comments?
I appreciate this PowerPoint from Abu and Megan's presentation as well. I think for me, I would be fine with just having the presentation like from Abu and that overview and those kind of graphics and charts. I think all the higher levels and numbers I appreciate, but I think if they're in our board packet, we could review them without presentation. But well done on the financials. Good to see you reviewed all the policies, and that's something our agency is currently under as well. So appreciate that.
Great work.
I agree with Director Holt. I am trying to contain my excitement internally. Nabu, that was fantastic and something I think a lot of us have kind of longed for, to have that level of detail. And I think Assistant Director James, you've done an awesome job annually when you are presenting the budget, but to have you on staff now, I am so elated. I feel so much more informed as a commissioner. Excellent presentation. And I would agree with Director Holt that what Mahbub just presented is far more maybe what we look at, but including Megan's detailed report in the packet. Well, to get here. Yes. We appreciate you. You have to have both.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I beg pardon because of my language and the pronunciation. Sometimes I pronounce the incorrectly. So I beg pardon.
Great job.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, I will entertain a motion to approve the financial report. So moved. First, second, any other discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Laird,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes. Here we go.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Shropshire,
Yes.
Judge Warren,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wilson. Is he on? And the motion passed.
Awesome. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, OCCY Parent Partnership Board report, and I will turn it over to Dr. Lana Turner Addison. Dr. Addison, you're muted.
Okay,
There
can
we go.
everyone hear me now? All right, thank you. Chairman John Snyder and Commissioners, I just want to take this opportunity to reintroduce myself. I am Dr. Lana Turner Addison, and I'm currently serving as the co-chair for the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth Parent Partnership Board. I am pleased to have this opportunity to present our activities and outputs during the third quarter, which you should have received a packet that details that information. To all commissioners and OCCY staff, I want to just thank you for recognizing the importance of the parent's voice in decision-making at the individual, local, state, and national level to improve policies. I would now like to take this opportunity to share a synopsis of my lived experience. A few of the commissioners may have already heard some of this information. How many of you know that there are children and families who still have unmet needs? I'm sure many of you do. And how many of you would be willing to help address situations that hinder progress for individuals in underserved and our rural communities, whether that's due to teen pregnancy, poverty, juvenile justice system, race, or other areas? Well, at the age of 17, I became a teen parent. This period in my life changed everything for me. I had no idea what my future would be like. I identify a teen parent as anyone age 18 years or younger who has conceived a child. As a teen parent, I felt so ashamed, so much so that I hid my pregnancy for about 6 months. And when I finally got the courage to inform my mother, like I mentioned, I was already 6 months. But she immediately took me to the clinic the next day so that I can begin my prenatal care. As I reflect on that time, I realized I should have shared sooner, but I was ashamed. But I was fortunate that I had a healthy child. And I know now how important it is that prenatal care is received soon as possible. In most situations, this care helps ensure healthy outcomes for the child. But the shame I felt prevented me from sharing sooner. I was a person who was mostly a loner. I did well in school. I enjoyed playing with the boys outside. I was labeled a tomboy. I enjoyed playing basketball, picking up critters and throwing grass snakes at girls, particularly those who liked to make fun of me. I was often ridiculed. But however, I grew out of this stage at the age of 16, and at the age of 17, I met a man who was 7 years older than me, who took a personal interest in me. And I began to feel emotions that I hadn't felt before. Have you ever felt afraid? You know, my siblings and I were always told that we would have to move out of the house once we completed high school. This was always a scary thought for me and my siblings. But with that knowledge, and now a newborn child, I knew I had to find a way to survive on my own. And upon completion of high school, I already knew I had to move. It was not easy because it was not just about me anymore. I was impacted for life. The life decisions I began to make were all centered on how I would care for my child. My plans, my future had to change. But this is not the situations for some teen parents. But I had been offered a scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. I had considered joining the Air Force. I had already started the initial process, and they continued to try to get me to enlist. But I could not, because it would mean that I had to give up my child, grant full custody to someone else to care for my child. That was something I was unwilling to do. So now what? I will attempt to summarize an epiphany moment of mine. I am a teen parent. My mother raised 7 kids on her own. I was raised in low-income projects, did not have a good support system. Outside of my mother, I was often ridiculed by those who I would consider part of my tribe, people I knew in my community, in my neighborhood, peers and adults. I received a substandard education. My epiphany moment came as a teen parent, knowing that I had to take full responsibility to take care of my child. So taking full responsibility meant for me getting a job, getting a college education, getting a home at the age of 18, locating and obtaining childcare, putting my child's needs first. You know, I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent, and I care about all parents. And I, along with the Parent Partnership Board members, recognize that parents are experiencing hardships due to a myriad of reasons. I care about these parents. This is why I have elected to serve on the OCCY Parent Partnership Board. And I share my story to just let you know that in spite of circumstances, it is sometimes necessary to be resilient and succeed in spite of adverse conditions experienced and our trauma. But it's hard. And sometimes I just feel like, why should our parents always have to? Many parents are seeking additional supports to help them with housing, health, and early childcare expenses. So why should you care? As a mother, as a father, grandparent, commissioner, elected official, our caring member in society, your voice and support can make all the difference to not only help teen parents, but all parents to fulfill their life purposes and live a happy and prosperous life. You know, I don't share this story seeking empathy. I only share to let you know, despite of our circumstances, teen parents starting from behind and living in poverty, we can reach our full potential. And what I have discovered, as I do community work, is that there is a need. There's a need for our elected officials, our commissioners, to have a priority focus to support increased funding to help teen parents, childcare, and early childhood education programs. I know that some things are being done now, and I just applaud those efforts, and I just want them to continue. These efforts have decreased the likelihood of children being caught up in the juvenile justice system. I am often asked what drives me to actively engage in nonprofit work and community work and parent advocacy. Why do I advocate for underserved communities and families? It is a difficult question for me to respond to directly, but the short answer is, it is because I care. And I am confident that each of you care as well. I am confident that we will work together to support families in obtaining resources and accessing quality, affordable childcare. I am appealing to you to do what you can to support building brighter futures for others who are experiencing challenges due to a myriad of reasons, from teen parent working during non-standard hours that make it difficult to access quality childcare. Many options that are out there support the traditional standard hours for working parents in the childcare system, but we'd have to be cognizant of those non-standard hours, late hours. Some of the reasons are neglect, social, emotional, and our economic challenges that are experienced by our parents. So, I want to thank you for the opportunities to share today. And I want to thank Commissioner Laird and Commissioner Kelly Perth, who attended our last commission meeting, for being there and listen to some of the shared stories that some of the other members shared. And I do want to just kind of just do a shout out. We gained 2 new members at OCCY in January, and there are some awesome members, and they're from the area of Oklahoma City. But again, thank you for the opportunity to share today. And I am very pleased to serve on the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth Parent Partnership Board. Our work is important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Dr. Addison? All right, thank you so much for your presentation and for your work and your passion. It's obvious you're very passionate about the work you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to agenda item number 7, presentation of the proposed state fiscal year 2024 child abuse prevention contracts. And with that, I will turn it over to Susan Gibson.
Thank you. Good morning. Morning. So I just want to introduce myself. My name is Susan Gibson. I am the program manager for the Office of Child Abuse Prevention. And in my office, we have the Parents as Teachers Home Visitation Program. And we also have the Oklahoma Family Resource Network, which is fairly new. Through the network, we have been able to award 3 RFPs to start up some family resource centers in Tulsa and Oklahoma County and Cleveland County. So we're very excited about that initiative. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Parents as Teachers. Parents as Teachers is a home visitation program. It's evidence-based. And we are able to see families who have children anywhere from prenatal all the way through kindergarten completion. We are able to see caregivers that are mothers, fathers, grandparents, foster families. We are universal access. And our job is to go into the home and provide parent education, to provide the protective factors, including concrete supports for those in need, and just general goal setting and being there to ask the parents, what do you need? How can we help? So that's a little bit about Parents as Teachers, wonderful home visitation program. So we are in our last year of our current RFPs right now. And so the state funded RFPs went out a couple weeks ago, and we were fast and furious to get them all scored and ranked and awarded. So you'll see in your handout that there is a formula that is in statute that we follow in order to determine how much money goes to each district. So if you look on the map, you'll see the districts are divided up by I-40 and I-35. So we have 4 districts, and then we have Oklahoma County and Tulsa County as their own district. And so using that formula, that is how we determine how much money goes to each one of those districts. We also use some criteria based on the responses that we get. So it's not just the money goes to those districts and that's all we have. It's looking at that and then also looking at the criteria. And you'll see the criteria in the bullets, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets down here. So combination of those 2 things is how we determined the awards that we were able to give. So if you look at the table, you'll see that these bidders were ranked in order of their score. And you'll see how much they requested and how much they were awarded. Unfortunately, we weren't able to award anybody what they asked for. We got close with some that were the higher ranking bidders. And unfortunately, we were not able to award 2 of our current contractors due to lack of funds and just their scores were lower than the other bidders. So we were able to award 8 contracts, and that will take us to 23 counties. We were at 28 and we will be at 23. We did have 1 new bidder, Center for Children and Families in Norman, and so they are going to receive an award. But that's kind of how it all fell out. So does anybody have any questions?
So, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Is the total amount that's available, is it going down, up? Is it stable over time? What does that look like?
When we were cut back in 2016 and we were reinstated in 2018, we got reinstated at a little over 2 million. And that's the figure you see there. We have not increased since then.
Steady.
Does everyone fill out the same form?
Yes, it's a competitive RFP. So the scope of work is the same. The instructions to bidders, all of that is the same. Now, when we get the responses, they don't all look the same because they're out from different agencies. We don't tell them exactly how to do it, but they get all of the same information.
Do you see any difference in outcomes in rural versus urban areas? Or are they pretty similar?
Outcomes as in?
Like, and just the work that you're doing of the contractors, of the contracts that are awarded and the work they do. See it be more successful, less successful, or easier, harder? It's like, is there a difference between rural and urban?
In terms of responding to the bid? Or?
No, in regards to them accomplishing what they say they'll do.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
My brain's here,
No,
you're there.
You're good.
Okay, not really. I can't give there's no pattern really. I have some in the rural areas that are at 100% capacity months and months and months in a row. And I have some in the metro areas that can't even meet the minimum capacity because of high staff turnover, things like that. So I don't really have I don't see that.
I think Annette would like to make a comment.
I just want to say the annual report for this program was in your packet, so you can see those kinds of details. And the highest, I believe, this fund has ever received was 3.3. So it has been considerably higher in the past. It's about 2/3 of its peak. But that was years ago when we were at that point.
Susie, so I'm gonna try to articulate this. I'm looking at, I understand how funding is determined, but then when the applications come in, they are ranked. So for example, if K County has a high rate of child abuse and neglect, but the application that serves K County did not score high enough, how does that factor into what is awarded? So my question is, if a county we know has high cases of confirmed abuse and neglect, but that agency may not have scored as high, is there any factor that?
There is. So the first thing that we do is we take the formula and divide the 2 million into those districts. And so what we found is that in some of those districts where there's less population, even though there's a higher rate, because you compare it to the state population, they got less money. And so we just kind of had to look at it that we had to start there. And then we had to look at the criteria and the bullet points to see how they ranked in terms of what they wrote for. And then we also looked at, we are allowed to look at historical performance now. We used to not be able to do that, but we can do that now. And so we took that into consideration too. We had 3 different scenarios that we put together. We worked, this week has been crazy, but trying to figure out how to be equitable across the board and award the ones that, taking into consideration their ranking, taking into consideration what the pot of money was for that district, and then also the best bang for our buck. We have to be good stewards of the dollars. And so depending on the scope of work of what they responded to and what they said they would do, we had to look at all of that too. So we had to look at a lot of different elements going into this because we just had to be really thoughtful about the money because we didn't have enough to award everybody. And so we had to think really hard about how we were going to disperse those dollars in a fair and equitable way.
So is it fair to say that, for example, Tahlequah Public Schools, which received for Northeast Oklahoma, if a family in K Noble or Osage or Pawnee, would they be served?
Would it be the same on item number 3 for the Great Plains Youth and Family Services I noticed that the colored map shows 12 counties in that area and you've mentioned 6. So are the services not available to 6 of those counties?
For the Great Plains?
Yeah.
No, so the 6 counties that services are not going to be available, starting with the new RFP, is going to be K, Osage, Pawnee, and.
Okay, I'm looking at Southwest Oklahoma.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Okay, you've got 12 counties colored in blue in Southwest Oklahoma. And your bidder number 3 includes 6 of those counties. And I'm wondering, what do you do with the other 6?
I understand the question.
Well,
Please.
Do we have other similar type of services using federal funding or otherwise to help any of these other areas?
We do. Okay, so to answer the first part of the question is that for Great Plains, those counties are the only counties that they included that they would serve in their bid. Now, we do have Children First. Their enrollment is limited. They only serve first-time mothers before the 28th week. So that's kind of we can serve some of those families, but not all of them. And then we also have some federal funding, but that federal funding, well, we have a lot of federal funding, but that doesn't go to that county area. That federal funding goes to Oklahoma and Tulsa counties That RFP is out right now. That's the McVie dollars. And then we have a rural McVie RFP that is in place already. It's in their second year of a 5-year contract, and that is in Comanche County. But any of the counties,
It is a patchwork, the quilt. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just not, every county's not got access to all of these services. And that's always been true. I think what you were saying is, like, even last year or previously, 5 years ago, it was the same way.
Yeah.
That same Great Plains was the previous contractor. They still only serve 6 out of 12 of those counties.
correct.
And so, yeah. These were the ones that we used to review in ITF too, right? So it's been a long time ago, but you were talking about performance. And I remember asking questions because there would be awards given to organizations that then didn't actually deliver. And you couldn't hold people sort of accountable for that going year over year. And so you'd look over years, you'd see somebody got a big award and then they didn't have staff or they didn't deliver. They might serve a small handful of people, not enough to sort of make it worth the administrative burden of even dealing with, but there wasn't a way to adjust for that. So I'm actually glad to hear, even though I hate that we got bidders that are, we're not able to recognize, especially in those rural areas.
I will say.
But I'm glad that you can look at history because that was a problem before.
I will say the bidders that did not get awarded did not have bad performance over the life of the 5-year RFP that they're in right now. Now they've had ups and downs like everybody else, but when you're working with families, you're gonna have ups and downs.
Staffing.
It's just they fell where they fell in the ranking for their response is why they ended up where they were.
How many total bidders did you have?
10.
That's all.
What notice is given to make agencies aware that the funds are available?
It goes out in an RFP. So I submit a list of vendors to OMES, and it's usually the current contractors and then anybody else who expresses interest. I put it on the vendor list, but OMES posts it on their website. And so most nonprofits know to go to OMES and check out what's available over there too. And then I'm able to, one of the things that I am able to do is whenever that is posted, I am able to notify my current contractors that it is posted. That's the only communication I can have with them, but I can do that too. And historically, the people who bid on these RFPs are the current contractors. And I've had these contractors for decades, so.
Have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. We will need, I'll entertain a vote. We will need a vote to approve their recommendations.
I'll move.
We have a motion to approve as recommended. In a second.
Second.
First and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington. Yes. District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt.
Yes.
Commissioner Kurtz.
Yes.
Commissioner Laird.
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Director Shropshire. Judge Warren,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to reorganize the agenda slightly and move on to agenda item number 9, presentation on maternal, infant, and early childhood home visiting grant and home visiting programs. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Lori Sarah. Essery, sorry, I butchered that.
Good morning. I am Lori Essery. I'm the Director of Family Support and Prevention Service. And as Susie mentioned, we are also the Office of Child Abuse Prevention. And I'm very happy to be here this morning. It actually worked out. I think I've been rescheduled twice just because of a couple of different circumstances. But
This is Child Abuse Prevention, or Child Abuse Prevention Month, April, as always, and you see the blue around the room. And I didn't wear blue, but I did wear my blue shoes. So a nod to child abuse prevention. And so what Susie presented this morning is very relevant to the discussion that we're going to have today. I am going to talk about our maternal infant early childhood home visitation grant. We call it McV. You may have heard it called MeCHIP. And in Oklahoma, we tend to call it that, but nationally they call it McV. So if you say MeCHIP on a national meeting, they don't really know what you're talking about. So it is McV. And it's all federal funding. And I want to talk about how it works with our home visiting program, how we can use those dollars, and then the increase that we're going to receive over the next 5 years. But I can't really talk about McV without also discussing really home visitation in general. Susie shared a little bit about PAT, and I'll ask her to jump in as we move through this. I am going to put on my glasses. I'm at this stage. I'm a little bit different. I can see up close great, but I cannot see from far away. I'm blind without my glasses. So just a little bit of history of our McV funding. It comes out of HHS, and it is a HRSA grant. It falls under the to strengthen and improve programs under Title V. And we really look at-risk communities, trying to provide more comprehensive services to families who are at the greatest risk and have the greatest need. And so it has been housed through OSDH since 2010. And as I said, we are going to receive some increase in fundings, which I will share with you. There are multiple different home visitation programs. I'm going to talk to you about 3 this morning that we particularly fund. They kind of vary in what they really are structured to do, but we ultimately see home visitation as primary prevention. You heard from Dr. McLeod and Dr. Addison this morning. I do sit on the CIP advisory committee as well. I attended the Fatherhood Summit. I will be involved in the strategic planning, and I love that group and I love what we're trying to do, but I love home visiting because it is primary prevention, and I want to see it impact those rates of incarceration, and I believe it really can and does. If we continue, we do see great outcomes, but again, services are limited. We know that we're not quite serving the whole state. So I want to talk to you about why home visiting is so critical. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dr. Bruce Perry, but Dr. Bruce Perry talks a great deal and has done a lot of research and written several books on that early childhood development, those early days. We know the first 2 months are incredibly critical to our children's lives, but really those first 1,000 days. Now, we serve individuals through the trajectory of their life, through their lifespan. And I believe in resilience and I believe in intervention, but those early days are so critical. We know many of you are familiar with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and anytime we can lessen those, intervene, prevent, it's going to give that child, that extra, just extra ahead, they're going to be on that right trajectory. And so those 1,000 days are critical. And this gives you kind of a visual to see everything that's happening in those first 1,000 days and a little bit beyond of brain development. We see sensory pathways and language, higher cognitive functioning. All of these things are taking place during those critical development stages. And home visitation, like Children First, like PAT, actually get to go in the homes and work with these families and Children First mothers before the child is even born, and then those critical years. So that's why we believe home visiting is so impactful and so needed across the state. So going back to McV, we do have state dollars as well, but McV currently funds Children First, and I left our 25th anniversary logo on there because I do want to make a reference to that. Children First is Oklahoma's Nurse Family Partnership. We celebrated our 25th anniversary in October. Some of you may have come out for that. It was really a great event, and just really highlights the work that has been done in Oklahoma over the years through that program and how many families' lives has been touched. Parents as teachers, as Susie shared, it's a little more extensive than Children First. Children First kind of is restricted in who it serves, and parents as teachers has a little more flexibility, and I'll talk more about that. And then Safe Care is, we fund through the University of Oklahoma, and it's a little more intensive. And I'll again share a little bit more about that. But I want to tell you a little bit about Children First. I apologize, I do have an updated slide. So this slide's just a little bit out of date. That number right now is about 500,000, and we're currently at 7 to 1 on return investment when you look at the national numbers and what it yields for nurse family partnership. So there's definitely value in this program. So what are our key goals? We want to improve those pregnancy outcomes. We want to improve child health and development. But this third one is very, very important too. It's improving economic self-sufficiency of families. And we do see that. That is one of our outcomes to, help those families get stabilized. So this is the eligibility criteria for our Children First. It is only first-time mothers, so that is a little bit limited, less than 29 weeks. They have to be at 185% poverty. We are expecting that to expand, but right now it is still at 185. One thing about home visiting, it is 100% voluntary. They make the decision to be involved in Children First, PAT. So it is 100% voluntary. It is strength-based. We go in and we work with families. We meet them where they are. And Susie referenced the protective factors, and we do follow that protective factor framework. We provide concrete supports in the time of need. Parental resilience, parental education on child and adolescent development. These are social connections, which are so key. All of these things are included in the protective factors, and all of our home visiting works for that. Some exceptions that we have, no matter the income, we heard about teen parents from Dr. Addison. We serve teen parents, and if they have a greater income, if they're under 18, we waive that. It doesn't matter what their income is. So we definitely want to serve those younger families. And then there are some, like if a woman has had a history of a miscarriage, stillbirth, they've never parented, then they would also be included as well. Just a little bit of a demographic for you. Our average age is 21, although, we serve, as I said, teens, usually up to 35 is the most common range. This is the breakdown. 81% of our mothers are single. However, that doesn't preclude father involvement. And as a matter of fact, we're really working within home visitation to provide a space for fathers, and we've seen more fathers involved. And I'll share just a little bit about that later. And then the household income, which you see how low it is. But I'm going to show you a statistic here and shortly that really you'll see why that economic self-sufficiency is so important. But we do have 71% that have a high school diploma. So what do we do? I'm not going to go through all of these, but we do targeted assessments. We do depression screenings. We provide health education, parenting education. As I said, we work on those protective factors to really strengthen that family structure and parental resilience. We link them to many other services that we see that they're going to need and have benefits from. Again, it's very strength-based. We go in and we meet these families, we work with them. We don't go in and just try to tell them everything that they're doing wrong or what's wrong with their life and family. That's not how we go about it. We really want to emphasize, what are the strengths in this family and how we can go in and support those strengths and support this family structure. We follow a visiting guideline. I will tell you that is, even though we do have, we try to go in the homes a couple of times a month with Children First. It is very much family led. So maybe a family needs a little bit less time, maybe they need a little more time. We really try to work with those families. Children First does very little virtual visiting, although we can if it meets the needs of a family. And we have had some success with virtual visitation, and Susie can share about that with PAT, what we saw father involvement increase with virtual visitation. But we really want to develop those relationships and that trust with that family. We want to really, as I said, meet them where they are. So what are some of our outcomes? We see 88% of our babies born at full term. Over 90% of our mothers initiate breastfeeding. They go and receive their wellness exams and immunizations over 90%. But this is that statistic that 50% of our clients increase their household income in 1 year. And that's just the first year. So that economic stability really does play a role, and we see that. And that's very powerful for our families. I do want to mention that that's just, in the first year, but that at our anniversary, we had a young woman who spoke. She's a Children First nurse, but she was also a participant in our program. And Priscilla talks about how, she was in school when she found out she was pregnant, and, she got involved in Children First. She finished her education, and now she's a Children First nurse. What a great testament to the program. But it took her a little bit longer to get to that level because she had to finish school and so forth. But what she gained from that program helped her move forward and achieve her goals. I'm sure that's not the only thing she had. Those social connections we talk about and creating those and that support, but we do see those outcomes continue. So that is Children First. Again, it's a little bit more restricted because it is first-time mothers. We don't go beyond that 29-week unless there are extenuating circumstances. But PAT, our Parents as Teachers program, from 0 to 5. Now, one of the things we do is work with Children First. So if a Children First is in that service area, we're gonna first refer that family to Children First. However, it's up to the client to decide. So they may say, yes, I want Children First, or they may say, no, I'd rather be involved in, or I'm gonna pick PAT. But we always do, if the mother meets the criteria, it's in a service area, we do refer to Children First. And then then PAT, so 0 through kindergarten. And that family, it works on that early development piece, but really engaging those parents and caregivers, a lot of family support. And you just heard the discussion about awards. So this is the current map for PAT. And unfortunately, as you see, the kind of the pink, dark pink maroon kind of color, and then the two hot pink are the counties that unfortunately we will be losing over the course of the next 5 years. That's unfortunate. However, I'm going to share a little bit more about McVie and those funds. Right now, those funds aren't available to those counties, but we hope with the increase in funds over the next 5 years for McVie and the new needs assessment that we might be able to expand more services into those counties. And that's why those dollars are so critical. And I real quickly want to mention Safe Care. Safe Care is a little bit more intensive program. So this is going to be more appropriate maybe for individuals who are going through, just a very difficult period. Maybe they're experiencing interpersonal violence, some substance abuse issues and so forth. So it's a far more intensive program. So the number served is a little bit less, but still very important. And, if a family is identified that this would be the more appropriate home visitation program for them at whatever that time is in their life, then we would refer to Safe Care. Several months ago, you guys heard a presentation about parents and children, and that's a new pilot program we have in Oklahoma. We do not fund that directly, but we are kind of indirectly working with them on our innovation grant, where we're looking at referrals and how we can increase referrals and close loops on referrals. And that is the only program where you can actually double dip. So if for example, if a mom was in PAT and it was determined maybe she was struggling with substance abuse, she could also be referred to parents and children and work through that program as well. And then again, this is a little bit more intense. So you see that they really try to meet more regularly with the families, hopefully every week. That doesn't always happen, but again, more intensive. So I'm going to switch right into McVie. I know I'm going fast, and we don't have a lot of time left, so forgive me if I'm talking a little bit fast. But currently, right now, our McVie funding serves Oklahoma, Tulsa, and Comanche with the dollars we have. We would love to see that expanded into more at-risk counties. And so these are benchmark categories that we are looking at when we evaluate maternal and newborn health. Obviously, we want to prevent child abuse, injuries, neglect, maltreatment. School readiness is very key. Reduction in crime and domestic violence. We talked about family self-sufficiency, and then of course, coordinating those referrals. So one of the ways that we use McV, we have our Parent Pro and Umbrella, and this is a website, it's a referral tool. Families can go to Parent Pro and they can look at all the services available in their area. They can look geographically, maps are pulled up. They can access toolkits and resources and find out what's available to them in their areas, how to get connected. And so this is a great tool for resources for parents and a referral piece as well. And that's completely funded by McV. We also have 3 community connectors that McV funds, and these are individuals who are out and they're working in the communities, they're working with organizations, agencies. They're talking about our services. They're trying to bring families in, let them know what's available, and again, increase those referrals into the home visiting programs. So this is all the current funding for McV. Now, you know it's only in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Comanche, but you see we are funding a lot of local implementing agencies. And this just kind of gives you a really good visual of all those who are benefiting from services right now. Also, we do rigorous evaluation. We contract with OUHSC, Dr. Bard. Many of you are probably familiar with him. We work very closely with him. He does such a great job. He works so closely with us. So we really look at these outcomes. The Learning Collaborative, we talked about increasing fatherhood engagement, and that was a key piece of that Learning Collaborative of how we can engage these fathers. And we saw some really good outcomes. As I said, the virtual appointments, more fathers participated in, attended. One of the most successful endeavors we had with that is we saw dads increase their reading to their children significantly. And so that was an incredible outcome for us to have. And so we don't want to abandon that. We look at different, as we move forward, we look at kind of different goals and initiatives with our learning collaboratives, but we most certainly want to continue to involve fathers as much as we can and look at that piece. And then on updates for McV, we did receive ARPA dollars. We were able to, out of that, we have 2 new diaper banks that we have in the Tulsa and Oklahoma City area. And so families, there's no restriction on those. And so we've had, they have just really, we've gotten those contracts in place. They are being utilized. We're really excited about that. We've been able, or we're working on expanding our reflective supervision for all of our home visitors, our McV home visitors, because we realize that unfortunately there is burnout in the field. They deal with a lot of stress. They're dealing with difficult situations. We're seeing more acuity with families. So that reflective supervision is very important to our workforce. And then I mentioned the innovative grant, which our goal with that grant that came out of COVID dollars is to really track those referrals and make sure that they are getting to where they need to go. There are warm handoffs, there's follow-up, and we can really close that loop. And we know that these families are getting connected appropriately, and we can verify that. We are going to do a needs assessment update, and that is going to be very important because it has the potential to expand our at-risk counties and expand our service area for McV dollars. And then I'm going to show you at the end of our presentation, we do marketing, and you see the dads here. That was part of our fatherhood initiative right there, and I'll share that. But this is what is really key. Many of you probably heard of Jackie Warliski, who unfortunately was killed in a car accident last year, but she was really a champion for home visiting, and she was one of the main authors that really pushed this reauthorization and the increase in funding. So over the next 5 years, what's going to happen is we have the potential to maximize our federal dollars. This first year, our base funding, we did increase our base funding by about $1 million. There's no strings attached to that. We don't have to, there's no increased match due to that. We will have, right here are the Oklahoma match numbers in red. So the ones in yellow are base and what the feds will then contribute as long as we meet our Oklahoma match. And so you see the second year, it's a little more, the third year, but by the time it gets to that fifth year, that's a significant amount of match. If we were just looking at McBee, that would probably be okay. But we also have our CB CAP, which is our community-based child abuse prevention grant, and it also requires match. So, you know, that state match will become very important if we want to maximize the dollars over the course of the next 5 years. Because if you look at 2027, we could be up to $12 million. As long as all of that plays out and we can successfully do that. So that is very significant. But we are seeing an increase this year. That needs assessment will be updated. And John DeLara is our program manager. I've already talked to him about how we can look at counties and look at expanding services maybe into those counties and those gaps. Right now, those 6 counties we lost, we can't serve those. It is possible maybe in the future with those expansion of parameters and increased funding. But, you know, we'll just kind of have to wait and see how all of that plays out. But it's still exciting to see that this many dollars can come into the state of Oklahoma for home visiting, because we do know home visiting works. We know it makes a difference in families' lives. We know that it really is a prevention and early intervention tool to really help families get on that trajectory of success. So that is the financial update on McPhee. And it wouldn't be a presentation without sharing just really quick. And in your packet, by the way, there are a lot of family stories. So if you have time, look at those. But just these are some of the families that we serve. We do have permission to share their pictures. You know, this is a dad saying, I feel like I have a lot to learn about being a father, but you know, this program is helping him. And then, you know, the families taught me that circumstances do not always indicate continuity. It is possible for our parents who are created in the emerging years to heal from the generational trauma we have collected from those around us. And so you see these families. We've got a picky eater here, and that just shows like how a home visiting program can help a family. And it's just so broad in the services that it provides. And so again, these are some of our families. We have so many wonderful family stories. And I could talk statistics all day, but when you actually see these families and see how their lives are changing, then I mean, it's so meaningful and it's so powerful. And so again, if you have time, look in your packet and see all the wonderful family stories that we have. Can we show the video first?
I was the wild child, the partier. I never expected to have children. I never planned to have children. And bam, I was pregnant. I had no clue what I got myself into. Well, I didn't know where to turn to. I didn't know how to be a mom. And people say, oh, it'll just come to you once you have your kid. I was terrified that it wouldn't just come to me. And I needed somebody to guide me and help me because I wanted the best for my son. Then I found you guys. And Melissa came into my house every week and helped me, guided me, taught me. And a lot of the time she was just there for me to vent and tell me that it's okay. I felt more independent because of the program. It helped me grow as a person. I learned that having a child is not a setback, and I was still able to have my child and be a great mother and still move on with the career and my dreams. And now I'm a business owner.
So you're a business owner and you're going to be a homeowner? That is so exciting. It really is exciting to see you doing so well. You have come so far from that scared young woman I met. I remember how scared you were and how confident you became as time progressed. To get to watch that, that was always a blessing for me, being a part of this job, is to get to watch women develop into moms and just feel empowered.
I know you feel like you have nowhere to turn and your life is over, but it's not. It's just beginning. And there's an awesome program that will guide you. And I know, being in that situation, that without children first, I don't know where I would be at right now. So thank you. You really helped me.
You had it in you all the time.
A program of your Oklahoma State Department of Health.
And again, the Step Parent Pro website, families can go on with the resources, they can see testimonials like that. So again, it's really powerful when you really bring it down to families and the impact that home visiting can have. So I know I've been up here a little while, but does anyone have any questions? Well, thank you so much for your attendance this morning, and
Thank you very much for your presentation. That was wonderful. We'll move back to agenda item number 8, legislative report, and I will Marcia Johnson.
Morning. I will be brief. I know I'm one of the last things standing between you and lunch. So you have a copy of my bill tracking list in your packet. The bills that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that you voted to support. Those bills make up the agency's legislative agenda, with the exception of, pardon me, House Bill 2799. That's a sunset bill that I have highlighted just because it's very important to us, but it wasn't on the agenda. I do have some good news that all of the bills that you voted to support are moving forward. And I'll go over those. I just want to mention, I had to run out of the room real quick because Representative Lawson called. I've been trying to get a meeting with him, and I was afraid if I didn't do that, I wouldn't talk to him until next week. The former foster youth stipend that you voted to support did not make it into a bill. So language creating a stipend, setting up the framework, did not end up in a bill. He has talked about possibly just appropriating dollars to the Department of Human Services and directing them to use that money for that purpose. So they would adopt administrative rules to set up the program internally. That's one of the things I want to visit with him about next week, is where that stands. Whether he's, as a legislator, he's got the freedom to pursue whatever avenue he chooses, and so we'll just wait and see what direction he's going to want to go in. It sounded like they had a rough week this week, which up to me, but I wasn't up there. So, but the good news is everything else is moving along. Two of the bills that deal with the high quality legal representation, House Bill 1017 and Senate Bill 907, create the Family Representation and Advocacy Program within the Administrative Office of the Courts. And these bills, both of them, have been amended since their introduced version. And Director Jacoby is the subject matter expert on these bills, but looking at them, it looks like the most significant change from the introduced version is that they removed the Family Representation and Advocacy Program Board. So each of the versions set up a board. The language doesn't prohibit the Administrative Office of the Courts from creating a board, but that to me looked like the most significant change. So I would defer to Director Jacoby if she has a different perspective on that. The next bill that you voted to support is House Bill 1029, and that's directing the State Department of Education to work with the Commission's Homeless Children and Youth Steering Committee to adopt a standard form to replace the form that's on the department's website. It would be a standardized form. Districts couldn't modify it. And the intent is to word questions. Depending on how you word a question on a survey, depends on the quality of those questions and on the quality of the answers you get. So that's the idea in adopting a new form. House Bill 2513 is the bill that expands the Handle with Care program in school districts. You may remember that the Handle with Care program is a way to respond to children who've had a traumatic event, probably at their house or somewhere the day before. And it just gives a tool to law enforcement to be able to notify the school without giving any details, breaking any confidentiality that this child needs to be handled with care. So that's on track moving forward. And before I forget, the status, when I say it's on general order, that means it's available to be brought up on that chamber's floor for a vote. And the deadline for that is 2 weeks from yesterday. And I had the date. So anything that you see on here that says general order, it's still alive. Something has to be done with it in the next 2 weeks, has to be voted out of the opposite chamber to move forward. Senate Bill 681 is the seatbelt bill, and this version requires anyone 16 years of age and younger riding in the back seat to be properly buckled in. And that bill is also moving forward, so that's really good news. Typically, those types of bills have problems. So I'm very encouraged by that. Senate Bill 696 is our administrative cleanup bill that we talked about. It's just deleting a lot of obsolete language and basically just cleaning up our statutes. I'm going to mention the former foster stipend. Like I said, we'll wait and see what form that takes if it does. I'll find out something next week, hopefully. And then when I send out a legislative update to the members of the committee, then I'll include that. And again, I'll remind you, if you want to get an email update from me, please just let me know. I don't want to send emails to your office that you don't want to read, because I understand we all get way too many emails. One last thing is the administrative rules that you voted to approve. They are going through the administrative rules process. So they've been submitted to the governor, the House and the Senate. And we'll just kind of have to wait and see if the House and Senate do their job collectively and move those on to the governor, or as in the past, that doesn't always happen, then the governor has to take action on his own, so which he's done in the past. So we'll just wait and see how that works out. Oh, it's Thursday, April 27th is the deadline for bills to be passed off into the House and Senate floors. So yeah, the other thing I want to talk to Representative Lawson about is I know that budget negotiations are ongoing, as they've been going on probably since first day of session virtually, but it's all private, and the discussions are, I'm not privy to that. So maybe I can find out a little something next week, but I don't have anything to report on the budget at this point.
Thank you for that. Does anybody have questions? All right, Marcia, thank you so much for your efforts at the Capitol and for that detailed report. Appreciate you. Okay, next is agenda item number 10, Director's Report, and I will turn it over to Director Jacoby.
I'll just highlight a few things out of the written report. First and foremost, I do want to introduce James Boykin, who's our newest employee in the Planning and Coordination Office. And if you'll recall, when I showed up here in December of 2017, we had no one in that office because we couldn't afford it. So we are now at 4 and going on 5 and people, and that's thanks in large part to the Capitol, the legislature giving us funding, but there have also been grant opportunities that are contract opportunities that have come our way through partnerships with many of you around the table. Thank you, Danielle and crew, for reaching out and making that happen. Thank you for giving us money because it allows us to actually have staff to do this great work. So there's that. I wanted to point out at your seat, I hope you have a lapel pin for PARB, the Post Adjudication Review Board. I want to congratulate Keith Hurdle and his crew on what I think was a great pre-institute last week at the Conference on Child Abuse and Neglect. There was a pre-institute devoted just for PARB. First time they've been together in that kind of large format in probably 3 years. And it just felt good, felt really good. And if you would throw that lapel pin on once in a while and tell folks that we would love to have them as volunteers. The applications are online. We're always looking for folks to recruit for us. We'd love your help in that. So take that with you. And then 2 quick things. I just want to say that the medical marijuana work group is continuing to meet and continuing to expand. I think I put in the report, there are 3 focus now because we realize the issue is, it's big and broad. First, the reason we were getting together was ingestions, mostly by little kids of edibles. And that really brought this to our attention, but 2 other focuses have been added now, and that's just youth consumption in general and pregnant women who are utilizing marijuana. I believe Lori had shared in one of our meetings, Lori Esri over here, that in home visiting programs, they're hearing moms say, I gave up cigarettes because I know that's bad for my child, but marijuana is natural. So that's my substitute for the cigs. So an issue that we know has an impact on developing babies. So wanted to throw that out. And last but not least, thank you for those, Director Holt, DA Hicks, on helping us with the juvenile competency work group. That too is an issue that's just been churning, and we're really appreciative of all those people who are helping us with that issue. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Annette. We appreciate it. Okay, agenda item number 11, announcements. Do we have any announcements from the commissioners?
I'll make a little quick announcement, and then if the group wants more detail, we can present us at a future meeting. We actually made a change in how we interact with folks who are applying for benefits. So this would be related to really families who are maybe applying for SNAP benefits, childcare subsidy, those kinds of things. So Tuesday, we went live with a mechanism that allows us to do on-demand interviews. So before, here was the process. You could apply online, which most people do. We would try to call you. You might not answer because you don't know the phone number, you don't know what this number is, or you weren't available. So we'd send you a letter and say, come to the office, whatever office, on next Tuesday at such and such time for an interview, which you might not get the letter, you might not be able to make it, you might not have transportation, who knows, whatever. And if you didn't show up or you had to call us back into a big phone number that gets 160,000 calls a month. And if you couldn't get through or we couldn't resolve your problem there, then your case got closed. You had to start over. Starting Tuesday, you apply online. We say back to you, when you are ready, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday through Friday, you can call us and we will do your interview process then. And not only that, but if you'll bring X, Y, and Z documents that you're going to need, we'll help you figure out how to upload them with your phone, or help you figure out how else you can upload them and get them to us. And so that it was a huge switch in both having the technology to be able to do that, as well as having the ability. We moved 600 workers from carrying a caseload to being on-demand workers. On Tuesday, which was the day we launched, in the morning, someone could be on the phone doing an interview within 12 minutes. We were tracking all that, 12 minutes. And that was on day 1. And we still had a lot of staff who were like, no, wait, what? How do we do this? Because they'd gone through training, but it's not the same as when you're doing it. So we'll have a lot more information over the next few weeks about how that's going. But significant improvement in access and not having delays in terms of applying for and eligibility for benefits for families. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's been a big, hairy, long effort, but really was a cool week for us.
Great job.
Yeah. So.
Comments? Okay. Agenda item number 12, I am now the only thing standing between you. I'm only going to say one thing. I understand that Judge Warren will be honored with the Jerry Haskins Award at the OCCY's 40th anniversary luncheon. So congratulations, Judge Warren. And I don't have any other things to say. Just thank you all for being here and for supporting the commission in this way. And we will move on to agenda item number 13. I need a motion to adjourn.
I moved to.
Second. We are adjourned.